Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Pete. And we have a guest today that I admire greatly. In fact, I think I'll tell you who it is, and then we'll say hello. Karen Kaplan is the CHRO at People Inc. Incorporated, and she leads their workforce strategy, culture, organization transformation. And so welcome, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here because that means we're on the other side of our implementation.
That is so true. You know, Karen and I met early in a journey and there was a lot going on. And we've talked a number of times about having some conversations that we could share with folks. And it always felt like, well, okay, but not yet. I think we're getting there. And now I think we have a whole journey and a whole story that we could talk about, right?
We do. Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm excited. We got a real life CHRO right out of the wild. Right here on the show.
Pete, why don't you go ahead and do the honors?
Yeah, Karen. So look, we always ask every guest on the show, how did you get into this wacky world of HR and payroll? Why on earth do you keep coming back?
That's a great question. I started business management degree, worked in operations for a transportation company, and worked my way up. I was a VP of administration for a larger transportation company and made a decision that I really wanted to take what I was doing in a for-profit world and work for more of a mission-driven organization. And I had a big job at the time and I was traveling a lot. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just do HR and do a portion of what I've been responsible for. And that'll provide good work-life balance and working for a nonprofit. And well, we all know HR is really busy and it's a lot to do sometimes, but it's been great. So for the last, 20 years, I've been working for a nonprofit mission-driven organization. And it's really the ability to work with people, the ability to be a part of our mission and the work that we do as a mental health care provider. And I can't provide the direct care to clients, but I know I can be a part of making sure our staff have the right tools so that they can focus on client care and really make a difference. So yeah, it's the
a super
people.
important mission.
It's actually a really cool industry too, right, Karen? I know, so you haven't always been in it, but there's a lot of things that go on in the industry or that are critical to healthcare, the whole healthcare industry that are unique things to solve for that, not everyone has to solve for. So I was just wondering, which ones of those, I have a bunch of those that come to mind in working with you and your teams, but can you help tell our audience, not everyone has worked in healthcare. What are some of the unique things that are challenges for
and
people that are working? Yeah, and
nonprofit too, right?
plus healthcare.
That's another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, first and foremost, we're heavily regulated. We provide a large span of different services from 24/7 residential treatment programs. We have some community support programs that are also residential. We have community-based case management. We have therapist outpatient clinics. We have therapists embedded into school systems. We have staff working out in homeless encampments trying to provide services. So the fact that our services are so broad, the needs of our staff really vary. So I think that's what presents some of the challenges of building a really good system, is knowing that we are going to have 24/7 programs. We are going to have shift differentials that we have to keep in mind. We have to set up, the right mobile technology for staff that are working out in the community so that the tool works for them as well. We have managers that we call it really close to the floor. So they're managing staff, but they're also providing care. So they need the right tools and the right efficiency around scheduling, around approving time cards and approving shift changes. I mean, we just need to have a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah. You guys have a very unique frontline force then, it sounds like, workforce.
We do a wide variety of different qualifications, licensure. So we're keeping track of credentials and
skills.
Different programs require different types of training as well. So yeah, there's a lot of complexity in the work that we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. We've talked about that, Julie, the technology of being able to connect that, right? Like time and attendance, workforce management to
Yeah.
skills to certifications to all
Yep.
of that and be able to surface the right person at the right time. I can't wait for that.
Scheduling, yeah, even just
Yeah.
knowing and being able to put the person who can do has the right credentials and the job at the right time.
Yeah.
And anybody who works in those types of organizations that have shift differentials and 24/7, types of schedules overlap, and there's just a whole lot of
Mm.
craziness that happens with scheduling. Those were some of the pain points, Karen. I think when we met and we first got introduced, but things were not going smoothly, and it was frustrating just trying to keep the wheels on the bus. I think when we first
Right.
got to know each other, what other sorts of things? What would you use to characterize where you were at that time before we got started?
Well, I would say it was a range of persistent friction issues where we were having to create manual workarounds. The system was not working for us, and then in some cases we had some actual system failures that created a significant amount of work for our payroll and HR staff. Data reliability was an issue, and we were supplementing the system with an external system because we have, gosh, 24 different locations. So we're spread out in the Twin Cities. So you can't fill out a form and route it to HR. We needed technology solutions for that too. And when you don't trust the system, you're not going to build out the workflows within the system.
Or use it.
Yeah, or use
Yeah.
it. So we were supplementing it. So systems weren't talking to each other, so it was very manual. It was taking extra time and resources, and it wasn't the right solution for our managers, for our staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, what kind of compliance lift do you guys have just from an industry perspective and then having that many locations? Do you have a lot of extra compliance that you have to do?
Absolutely. I think with all those different locations are
Mhm.
different types of programs and services, and they all have different regulatory requirements, different staff qualifications that are needed, different billing requirements. So it's very complex. And
Yeah.
in the system that we are working with now, we actually made the decision to add on their gosh, it's their certification tool that helps to keep track of. So we know in an evening shift, we can have two people that are mental health practitioners, for example. One can be at a rehab level, but you can't have two at that level. So it's very prescriptive, and that's why having the right tool is just really important.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think going beyond even there's a compliance portion, but there's also just even the funding requirements, right? When
Mm.
you're in a nonprofit, and so
Yeah.
to be on legal and regulatory things, is am I meeting with the constructs for the funding that is being brought in? And for those who are payroll nerds, just imagine, then also having to link your people costs and your people and other resources to funding sources as well in the GL, right? I think is just unique to the
Right.
whole world of nonprofits.
Yeah.
So at that stage, Karen, I hear a lot of practitioners that go into a new situation or are living with an existing situation that isn't ideal. And, there's this internal struggle. Do I just need a different system, or what do I need to do to make this thing work? Because it's a lot of effort to go through a process to pick or to replace a systems environment. And you were very thoughtful about that when we approached it. And some folks are so frustrated, they'll just throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, just give me something else. Some folks do that multiple times. Like what was your approach? Because you really did, want to be thoughtful and think about how could you best fix this?
That's a great question because it really started at a point where we had a system that wasn't meeting our needs. We were trying to configure it so it would meet our needs. It was causing system issues, breakdowns, failures, and a lot of workarounds. And so we actually took a step back to say, what policies and practices do we need to change from an organizational level that will meet the system? And I don't no one wants to do that, but there's a point in time where you have to make that decision. And as we were doing that, that's when we started that work where we just really needed to understand and conduct that root cause analysis to determine what is what are configuration issues, what are platform issues, what can we fix from a configuration standpoint, what can we fix from a policy workflow change on our end, things that we can compromise on with the system, and what are things that just don't meet our needs or don't work correctly for us. And that was, gosh, was that about a 6 month? It felt like a long
It
process
was
that
a
we were working. We took a lot of time, and I know we interviewed a lot of different stakeholders and did a lot of assessment in those areas.
That's the hard part you gotta do up front. People try to skip. Or
yeah.
they don't admit that they need to change and then try to cram the old into the new, and that's not gonna work anymore, especially with AI.
That was a big learning point for us because you hear a lot from those that are presenting systems like, oh, yeah, we can do that and we can configure that for you. The more you push it outside of what it was built or meant to do, the more I think risk you have in the system not working correctly.
Yeah.
So
It's very important to try and adapt as much as you possibly can because often what you're being presented is best practice or leading practice, and trying to to conform that around your outdated or grandfathered practice generally is just gonna bite you somewhere down the line.
Yeah. I think, another unique flavor is for folks that are doing that actively. You changed some policies even just on how breaks or meals or, different punches and things were handled in order to try to work within the confines of the existing system. And then when you did get to a place where you were looking for new requirements, now, you get to the point where it's like, well, do I change the policy back, because I simplified it or tried to make it fit one scenario. Now I have an opportunity. Is it worth readdressing and going back to the old policy changes?
Yeah.
Where did you land on some of those, Karen? Just is it like you really makes you think about, was it that unique and was it that important that I would actually go back and change it all again from a change management
I think
perspective?
I think we carefully evaluated that in the RFP process, which was that next phase that we went into after the initial assessment of, can we get this system to work for us? Can we make the changes that we need to make from a policy standpoint? And because of being highly regulated, the example that you use, we couldn't have an automatic lunch punch in and out after, oftentimes it'll happen after 6 hours, for example, because we need to know who's on shift, who's there at that time. So it had to happen in real time. So those were some of the things that where you want to make sure that you have that reliable tool and it's accessible to our staff and that they can use it correctly. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
Yeah.
I think we definitely did look at policy, and we were very mindful of, is the system, through the RFP process and through the assessment process of really understanding what we needed, what were things we could not compromise on, that the system absolutely had to do, and what were some of the nice haves, but we had some flexibility. So it's really important, and that's why I think starting with the assessment of the previous system really helped to inform the RFP for us, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, it was key to figuring out whether you really needed to go to an RFP, right? Or you could salvage or redeploy or do the right things to make the system you had work for you. What sorts of things did you have to address with your peers and other leaders in the organization to just convince or assure them that yes, we do actually need to think about making a change and go to market for something different. We tried, but we need to move in a different direction.
They were all ready. I mean, the frustration with the system that we had, I think they were all very open and ready for a change. And the fact that we approached the RFP by pulling in stakeholders and really approach it from a change management standpoint, I think is a big takeaway and so very important. And where they were able to provide input, they were able to share what was working for them, what wasn't working, what they needed was a really important part of the process. And we needed to rebuild trust with our leaders and with our staff that we were going to pick the right tool and it was going to be built in a way that was stable and met their needs, and they could stop focusing so much time and resources on a system that wasn't working right for them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, clearly you got to a good place and you had great peers and other senior leaders that were willing to stack hands with you on going there. So I would like to ask you just a little bit about your perspective of, because I think you've done it both ways. Most leaders of organizations, especially mid-sized organizations, have done RFP work or selected or chosen the next provider themselves. And then there's having some help doing that. And so, what made the difference in having an advisor kind of help you with some of these processes?
I really think, again, going back and looking at how we approach the initial assessment of our current system of, what are platform issues, what are configuration issues, what are policies that we need to, or workflows that we need to think about on our end, really gave us a good basis for starting the RFP. And it was really important from a change management standpoint that we had what felt like a very objective process for our leaders and our stakeholders in the organization. I think it was important for them to know that they could provide input and they would provide input. And that was a really important part of the process. So, having a very structured RFP process when you're looking at a system this big of an investment, knowing that we were going from a system where we were having some really significant challenges, it was really important to take that approach, I think.
Yeah.
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 Hey, can I ask you guys how much was your initiative about sort of remediating whatever you needed to replace in the legacy system versus setting yourself up for like your future vision and roadmap that you guys were wanting to support? Was this a step towards a bigger thing, or was it more of a remediation of somewhere that you guys had ended up?
I think we're always trying to solve for multiple problems or solutions, issues. And we needed to make sure that we had a system that could grow with us, that would create efficiency, and dependability, reliability for our payroll department. We do get to do some really amazing things that People Incorporated as far as workforce development, leadership development. And when you have staff tied down by trying to audit PTO balances instead of,
Yeah,
working on organizational development or culture work, that's just not where you want to spend your time.
right.
Yeah, we needed to make sure we had a system that was scalable and that brought some efficiency for really everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in an organization like yours, where I'm sure, even more so than maybe a private organization, you're working with, do more with less resources in a nonprofit typically.
Yeah,
I think
for
I
sure.
think all organizations,
For
for
sure.
profit,
Yeah.
nonprofit, are all faced with that. We get to invest our margins back into our mission and our people,
Yeah.
and
That's awesome.
So I know
yeah.
you were really trying to, solve for a lot of administration and processing that just, wasn't working optimally for you. But did you also have a chance to pick up some new or added, modules or capabilities or things that you just hadn't gotten to that were new to People Incorporated?
I don't know about new, but we really did approach it from, as you know, we had a system outside of our HRIS system, that we were using for performance management. We were using it for processing change, new hire, just because the previous system, the dependability issues and the challenges with that, we found that we were building systems outside of it. Um, and
Mm,
to be able to approach it as we are going to do away with or reduce anything that touches payroll is not going to be outside of the system. So building the performance management tool, building the change forms within the system that managers could go in and use versus doing something outside a system and then trying to pull the data into it. That was a fun part of the process of
Change.
seeing how we could integrate all of those outside systems.
Yeah, that was really one of the game changers for me because, we had the chance to work together from the assessment on through the RFP and beyond. And at a number of points in time, when you're really reliant on, workflow and approvals happening not in the system, it's a difficult conversation to have to say, no, no, really, when we deploy this, you're going to really win if you can get this inside of the system functionality because they're built for that. And even into the requirements, this isn't just you, it happens all the time. Some of those requirements needed to be, let's vet and make sure they can connect to our old way of doing things because, letting go of that is not a given. It's something that we
Right.
still have to work through.
Letting go. I like how
Uh,
you call it that.
I mean, I don't know exactly at what point you worked miracles, Karen, to kind of get over the hump of, yes, we are going to build this in the system. We're going to use the system, and we're going to, we're just going to make friends with the idea that, we shouldn't need this anymore, but it's a huge change effort for sure in an organization.
I could see myself in my past consulting days shaking the client in the corner. You have to let go.
Let go.
The
Use
future's
the
here. Let
system.
go.
Trust me, you
Oh
really can
man.
do this in the system and it can be audited but it's
Yeah.
such a common conversation, because you have to have those audits. You depend on the tracking
Yep.
and the trails. And if you feel like you can't, you just can't.
Yeah.
How come there
Right.
was something that happened, Karen, in this whole journey that you were on that happens also to most folks taking an HR transformation journey, and that is, the stakeholder engagement and turnover in key roles because
Mhm.
things happen over a long period of time, and so it's not uncommon for people to actually have somebody exit that is in a key SME role or a key stakeholder role. What can
Sure.
you tell us or share about, those times, trials and tribulations?
Well, I think as you said, that can happen at any time. And it's challenging and unfortunate when it happens in the middle of a system assessment, RFP, and then right before you're going to go into implementation. Fortunately, we were able to rebound from that, and we do have some great legacy staff on our payroll team, on our HR team, where just so grateful and impressed with some of the folks that really stepped in to help the project. When we built our core team, we wanted to make sure that we had great IT support, and I think that we built it with stakeholders, our core team from different parts of our organization, and they had such great legacy knowledge that they could bring forward. So I think that helped us move through that challenge. But we were so committed to this project, and we made it a priority, and we were able to put the right resources towards it, and I think that really made the difference. And being able to rebound quickly from a turnover from a key staff person on the payroll team.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it
Happens every time.
yeah.
I'm afraid to shout out, but I can't help but mention Angie, who was wonderful through the whole entire lifetime. And I won't shout out any
Absolutely.
further because I will miss numerous people on your team that were just amazing to work with. I also would say, Karen, and I think you and I've talked about this before. IT came to the table. They always do. They should
Yeah.
be at the table in these things. And they really were a great partner in your journey, especially given the fact that there were these other workarounds that were pretty core, and so that I thought was really impressive. I mean, HR needs to have IT, they need to have finance at the table, and your IT stakeholders were really committed to helping support your vision going forward. So, however you build those relationships as a part of your role internally, working with other leaders in the organization, like I could just tell you had done a bang up job, and there was a lot of alignment, which isn't always the case. Sure.
It's interesting. It's part of our strategy where we look at 4 different areas around client service and outcomes, innovation technology, our workforce development solutions, and of course the financial piece of that. So I think our culture really helps to support that partnership. And we learned from the previous one that we went through where IT was certainly involved, but HR was always a different system. It's really changed within our organization where we have that close connection, and you do need it because there's so many different components
Yeah.
to HR system that the technology, some of that's over my head and how it all feeds into other systems and all of the connections. So it's really important to have their support. And I think it was, again, back to when we had some of the turnover in the key stakeholder, having some of the support from other key departments was really helpful. And yes, a shout out to Angie, who has worked for the organization for 25 years. And she started out as a department of one. She's my HR director, and she oversees more than just payroll. But she stepped in and really led the project in a way that quite impressed by the work that was done. So
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
she was
awesome.
amazing. There are always, like just there's always someone that is really a driver. Well, I know, you and I both know that your journey went on through implementation, which is a harrowing experience most times. So I wanted to make sure we touched on implementation as well and give you a chance to share some of your experience, your thoughts, lessons learned, anything that you would, you think that other folks might want to, hear or learn from around implementation that you went through?
well, I think again, I can't stress enough, you have to approach any kind of project like this as a change management project. We had support from working with your team from project management standpoint. We had a project manager internally assigned who did a phenomenal job as well. So shout out to Danielle, our project manager, who great job keeping us on track and having even just the follow up from you cover so much in a system configuration meeting, and then there's all these different takeaways that need follow up. And she really kept us on track with all of those. We didn't mean to take a staged approach in our implementation, but it worked out that way. And that really helped. So we first launched our open enrollment because that came in November and our go live for the system was January. So we launched it there and staff got to see the system, see the capability of it and experience. It had a really good mobile functionality. And I think that was really well received by our staff and it went well. So that was so important. So we launched our open enrollment in the system, even though we didn't have all the rest of the configuration done. And I think that was a nice preview to staff. Part of our project plan is always a communications plan. So we were closely connected with our communications team. We tried to build a lot of energy around that this system is coming and had branded communication and screensavers that were coming out. So building some excitement for it. The next thing that we launched, go live, was our talent acquisition. Needed to launch in November, but I know we were all kind of waited for that. We were waiting and holding our breath for that first punch
Yeah. First
payday.
punch, first pay.
And what's interesting, one of the things that we measure now as a metric is number of manual checks. We were doing 10 plus manual checks probably a month, sometimes more than that. We have our system built now where these last two payrolls, I feel like I should knock on wood, we've had 0 manual checks.
Wow. That's
So,
great.
yeah. And part of the system that we're currently using has approved my paycheck, and we're at about a 60% adoption for that. So we track that as well. That's another important metric. We certainly would like to get to 100%, but staff get to see a preview of their paycheck on Monday. The other system, we were down to the wire Wednesday and Thursday just trying to get everything processed. There's no way staff could see that kind of preview. And that's been a really important part of this. Staff can see their paycheck. They can ask questions. We can get corrections made. They can get corrections made, actually. That's another part of the change management is supervisors aren't going in to make corrections. Staff are able to make corrections
Mhm.
and request punch changes, for example, if something doesn't look right before their actual payday, so they know what's coming and they can approve it. And that's been, I think, a really fun feature for staff. They look forward to approve my paycheck.
Yeah, yeah, you wanna
Yeah.
have a little bit of that power in your own hands, and anyways, supervisors just have to chase down and track down a little bit, like, the details of all of those items, so why not put it in the
Yeah.
hands of the frontline workforce for sure.
Totally.
Excellent.
Can I ask, Karen, what's kind of next for you guys? What's on the roadmap? Where are you guys headed to? What are you going to solve next?
Well, I really think, AI is a big piece of what we're looking at. We always have to be mindful of that. Looking at how we can improve efficiency for our managers, for our leaders. So we actually, Angie, my superstar, has started a Tiger team
Oh, good.
for our system and
Are you
pulling
already
it.
using it are you using it on the front end of your business as well? And there's maybe something for you to tap into, or are you sort of doing spearheading your own AI work?
The system does have AI capability. We
Okay.
really want to, we pull a lot of metrics together. We're always looking at, some of those key HR metrics, but there's some different tools that we want to start to explore around analytics.
Mm,
We have some dashboards built even around when we look at succession planning and what the makeup of our staff are as far as age, and where we can even drill down to see
mhm.
age bands within certain positions and where we see retirement coming, where we can
For
start
planning.
planning for. And that's where we're really getting to use that
Yeah.
system.
Is AI at play anywhere else
Oh,
in your business?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have an electronic health record, and there's a project now that started looking at the electronic health record has AI functionality built into it.
Nice. Okay.
And that's something that, we were not early adopters of that capability because we're just very careful about how
Yeah.
we look at and evaluate that, and yet
Sure.
we know, again, that adding that efficiency for staff, it's all about how can we, make sure that our staff can spend more time providing care
Right.
with clients instead of in documentation or in an HR system. That's what that's what really, I think,
Yeah.
impacts that
For
quality of
sure.
care and our mission, and that's
I love it.
important.
I love it. You guys don't stand still.
That's right.
You can't.
You
You really
can't.
can't.
That's right. And I think that's just so inspirational for there's so many leaders that are staring at the face of something that could be a 2-year transformation journey, right? And there are times that it can just feel overwhelming and hopeless, and it's certainly a struggle kind of to keep on path, but I think you're proof positive that you can actually get to a very, very, a better place, a much better place, and something that fits what you need, and that does involve effort, some effort and a lot of coming together by the team, which you were great at.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We knew we needed to rebuild that trust and trust in the system and take an approach where stakeholders knew they had a voice and that that was valued, and having an external party work with you and partner with you on that, I think really helps bring the credibility to it as well. And that's important.
Well, it's been wonderful just catching up with you. I'm so elated, to find you on the other side of the table from where you were when we met. I'd love to, where should people get a hold of you if they'd like to reach out and hear a little bit more or know more about your story?
Well, absolutely. Our website is peopleincorporated.org, and there's great information about what we do as an organization. Happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn as well. I am on LinkedIn. If anyone has any questions, that's probably a great place to start to reach out. And I'm happy. I've had a few other businesses, organizations reach out and ask questions about, okay, tell me about how you went through the assessment or the RFP process, and
Cool.
I'm happy to talk about that.
I love it. Well,
Awesome.
Karen, congratulations and thank you. Congratulations to
Thank
you
you.
and your team.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us
Wonderful.
and sharing this. I really appreciate it.
All my pleasure. It was, as Julie said, it was nice to catch up. Julie and I worked together pretty closely for about a year or so.
I love
It's
it.
nice to see you again and
I love it.
again, be
Likewise.
on the other side.
That's the spirit of our show, right? We try to bring our network on and just share the knowledge and share the wealth. So, yeah, again, congratulations and thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
as always to the audience. Thank you, Julie. Great interview this time. And yeah, thanks to the audience, right? Stick and stay with us. We got more of this coming soon. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, give us a rating if you can. and we'll be back very soon.